OutcatsedOC. Viewer discretion is advised. Incoming transmission in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, it's Courtney here from the OutcatsedOC podcast and welcome to the Monday Night Raw recap. This is the first episode of Monday Night Raw after Survivor Series War Games. I can't wait to talk about it because there was a lot of really cool stuff that happened in this episode, so let's just get straight into it. And yes, I am still in this setup. Unfortunately, I still am having power issues with the room that I normally film in, but that's okay. We don't stop this grind. But before I start, please make sure you go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate everybody who's coming in and showing us so much support, whether you're liking the videos, giving us comments on our videos, subscribing to the channel. We really appreciate it. So make sure you go ahead and do that before we get started. Monday Night Raw this week kicked off with a video recap segment from the Survivor Series War Games men's match, which obviously showed a lot of the interactions and the reactions that we had from that match. Obviously seeing the return of Randy Orton and the crazy return of CM Punk. It has been 48 hours since the event and I still cannot comprehend the fact that CM Punk, I can't physically, mentally process the fact that CM Punk is back in WWE. You're going to hear me talking about this a lot because I genuinely, I don't know what it's going to take for me to realize he's here. I just think it just feels like such a surreal moment to me that my brain can't comprehend it. I don't understand why, but I'm sure I'll get used to it. I actually had the debut of a brand new theme song for Monday Night Raw, which I really liked the theme song. I was jamming to it, doing a little Akira Tozawa while I was doing it. Not as nasty as he does it, but I am trying my best. The show actually kicks off with Randy Orton coming out to cut a promo. He makes his way out to the ring. The crowd goes absolutely crazy. Randy looked really emotional when he got into the ring because I just feel as though he would have felt this sense of pride being back and just obviously being away for 18 months with a double fusion surgery on his back. I feel as though he may have had many a moment where he thought he was never going to have this experience ever again. So I'm so incredibly happy that he's back and he's excited to be back, and he obviously looks like he's missed it. That moment when he gets on the edge of the ring, on the ring post, and does his pose. The first one he went down and actually banged on the ring post a few times because I think he just kind of realized that he's back and he's, you know what I mean? It was just one of those moments where it was really awesome to witness because he didn't get to have that at War Games. He pretty much just made his entrance and just got straight into the cage. But with this time, he actually got to have a full-blown entrance and got to really soak it all in. And so I'm honestly feeling so excited for him and I'm so happy that he's back. He pretty much comes out to the ring and the crowd's going crazy and he says, well, it sounds like you guys miss me. And he said he's been away for a very long time. And it gave him time to think about his career and his career highlights. He goes through a couple of the accomplishments he's had. And he said he hasn't done one thing within his entire span of his career, which was being a part of the War Games match. And he went ahead and said, when Cody called me, of course I wanted to accept. And it feels so much more special to call Cody a friend and to also know that the match that we participated in was actually created by Cody's dad, Dusty. Dusty Rhodes' chants start to happen. And he looks a little bit emotional talking about it too. He goes on to then say that he was a part of a moment and, they made history. He has unfinished business to take care of, and he references heavily that it's the fact that it is the Bloodline. As we all know, Randy Orton was last seen in a match against the Bloodline, which they took him out and sidelined him for 18 months. So it's very interesting to see that that's kind of his first real target. We can definitely see where that's going to go in the future. He said, I am normally somebody who puts guys on the shelf, but I can forgive and I cannot forget. And he said he's got a lot of receipts for everybody within that bloodline. Receipts are the RKOs, which is obviously something he referenced as well too. While this is happening, Rhea Ripley made her entrance and I just got incredibly excited during this moment because I was really hoping something was going to happen. We will get to that when it happens. Rhea goes ahead and welcomes Randy Orton back, and she's obviously saying, you were a part of a really great War Games team with, Jay, but do you almost feel as though that your return was upstaged? Goes ahead and says, don't get me wrong, you are dangerous, more dangerous than ever. But she said the landscape of the WWE has changed quite a lot since you've been gone. The bloodline has really fallen down and it's not as great as what it was when you were around, but the Judgment Day has now risen. War Games, yes, it was a bump in the road, but we are still dripping in gold. And he said if it wasn't for you coming out, Damian Priest would be the World Heavyweight Champion. and said that you've made a lot of enemies doing this and that you are now living a nightmare. And that Judgment Day get the job done, and we start hearing the crowd chanting RKO because Randy and Rhea are literally facing off in the ring. I kid you not, I was chanting as well too. I was like, RKO, RKO. Because I feel like if she was to take an RKO, that would be incredible and she would sell the hell out of it. Randy responds by saying, while I was gone, I was actually watching the product and, I've heard a lot of mommy this, mommy that, mommy this, mommy that, Rhea this, Rhea that. It follows on by saying that, daddy is now home. And you won't catch me saying that ever again because I hate that term. I just think it's a little bit gross. But that was how Randy said it, so I wanted to get the quote right. So that's what Randy said. Rhea says that things have changed, but what hasn't changed is that nobody tells Randy Orton what to do. And you can tell that tension's really piping and it's getting so much stronger. And the crowd is just getting really behind Randy, just potentially RKOing Rhea Ripley. Rhea follows on by saying, I did try to warn you and that you are technically now considered an enemy. And we end up seeing JD McDonough and Dominic Mysterio sneak attacking on Randy Orton. Randy ends up beating down on both Dominic and JD McDonough. We actually see JD McDonough sporting a neck brace from taking that RKO back at Survivor Series, and he gets another RKO as well too. He follows on by saying, I am going to find Adam Pearce tonight, Dominic, make sure you stick around because I'm going to make damn sure that I get you in this ring tonight. And it is then later on confirmed in the evening that for the main event of Monday Night Raw this week, we are going to be getting Randy Orton versus Dominic Mysterio. Which, following on with this segment, we had a bunch of different men's tag teams outside backstage. And they are all talking about the fact that they are going to be in the WWE Tag Team Turmoil match, obviously for the #1 contender spot for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. And we see a moment where Akira Tozawa and Otis are now talking about the fact that they are debuting as a tag team together. Then we end up seeing Jelly Roll. Now, I didn't initially know who Jelly Roll was because I live on the other side of the world to America, but I'm happy to learn. And I found out that he is a musician from Nashville, which was really cool. They were in Nashville this week. So Jelly Roll came out and he had a really nice moment with Otis. And then we got to see a returning R-Truth. And I was so excited to see R-Truth. I feel as though anytime he's in a segment, he always uplifts it. He always makes it great. He's just got such a way about him that just brings the vibe up all the time. So I really enjoyed seeing that. Jelly Roll and R-Truth hugged it out. And they were basically just saying how they missed him, which was quite cool. We then go into the Tag Team Turmoil match. Now, the first hour of Monday Night Raw was commercial free. I am not wrong in saying this, but quite a lot of the first hour within Monday Night Raw being commercial free this week actually was taken up by that Tag Team Turmoil match, which I am not complaining. I feel as though being able to showcase your tag team division is probably something you really want to focus on, men and women's wise. So let's go ahead and talk about that Tag Team Turmoil match. The Tag Team Turmoil match starts with two teams. A team gets eliminated and then another team comes in. So we had the Alpha Academy, we had DIY. They both started off this match. So straight away from the very beginning, DIY and Alpha Academy are starting off really strong. Akira Tozawa is on fire. DIY does end up double teaming Akira Tozawa and then Otis comes in with a lot of agility. Akira and Otis both hit their caterpillars and then they hit a double elbow onto DIY. DIY hit the meat in the middle on Akira Tozawa and Alpha Academy is then eliminated. We then see Indus Sher come out and they start double teaming DIY outside of the ring. Johnny Gargano eliminates Indus Sher very quickly into the match with a quick roll through. Then we see the Creed brothers come in, and the Creed brothers and DIY do have a lot of really good in-ring chemistry. So they start working Tommaso Ciampa on the ground straight away, and then we end up seeing this really crazy double move coming in from Johnny Gargano onto the Creeds. Then we see DIY go for the meat in the middle, but then we end up seeing Julius Creed interrupt this, so that doesn't actually come and happen. See a Brutus Bomb come in and DIY is then eliminated. We then see the New Day. Now the New Day and the Creed brothers got quite a lot of time in the ring together, which was really cool. I feel as though the New Day was a really good team to choose to have the Creed brothers come up and have a little bit of a tag team run with in terms of time within the match. New Day is one of the most decorated tag teams in the entirety of WWE, so having them with newcomers like the Creed brothers who have just come up from NXT, great way to show off the skills. So straight away, we end up seeing Kofi and Xavier. They are both just on fire as per normal. Kofi ends up splashing Julius, and then Julius ends up slamming Kofi. We end up seeing Brutus hitting a really nice suplex onto Xavier, and then ends up hitting another one, but he's kind of using the ring ropes as leverage. It's a really slow maneuver, but it looks really good. Then we end up seeing Brutus hitting a standing moonsault, and Xavier Woods delivers a really nice DDT and then follows this with a really nice backbreaker, which then we see Kofi Kingston hitting a really nice stomp on. See Brutus Brom coming in on Kofi Kingston, which then eliminates the New Day. We end up seeing Imperium come in as they are the last match within the team, and they are just coming in attacking the Creed brothers really quickly. We see Giovanni Vinci hit some really awesome moves coming off the ropes as well too. Towards the end of the match, we end up seeing Julius hitting a double suplex onto both Ludwig and Giovanni. Ludwig and Giovanni try to fight dirty and hit a really nice... Ludwig gets hit with a really nice superplex, which then Brutus ends up following this with the Brutus Ball, and they end up coming away with the win. So it was a very long match. There was a lot to take in, but I think the most important thing is that the Creed brothers are now the #1 contenders for Judgment Day's tag titles. I feel as though that's going to be a really interesting match whenever we see it. I'm very excited. I feel as though the Creed brothers are on such a roll since they've debuted on Monday Night Raw, since they've moved up from NXT. I'm really excited to be taking the reins away from Reese when it comes to talking about the Creed brothers and actually talking about them on Monday Night Raw, considering they have graduated from NXT. So thank you so much, Reese, for this. I will know that you will know this joke because you'll be watching the video and I'll be able to quiz you on that, and if you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, and we see a moment where Rhea and Dominic are chatting backstage about Randy Orton, about how that match is going to be happening later on. And we see Damian Priest, the camera kind of pans to him and he's looking really sad, kind of just dazing into the, the distance. And Finn Balor comes in and says like, hey, I was watching the Creed brothers match. Like, we really shouldn't underestimate them. Like, they're looking really strong. And then Finn Balor proceeds to ask Damian Priest if he's okay. And, Damian's feeling a little bit bummed out about the loss from Survivor Series War Games, considering he was the War Games match team leader. And he's just wanting to know if he basically screwed things up and if people are upset with him. Rhea comes in and reassures him that everything's okay, and we're all a family and we all have moments where these things kind of happen, but we stand by each other and we've got to back each other up and it's totally okay, and we don't hold grudges. Finn Balor and Damian Priest then go off to find JD McDonough because he's still in medical after taking that RKO from Randy Orton. After this, we have a promo segment coming in from Cody Rhodes, so he makes his way out to the ring and he starts by saying, what do you guys want to talk about, which is a very typical Cody Rhodes thing to say. You can't have a promo without Cody Rhodes hitting the, what do you want to talk about? Anyway, he says that there's plenty of stories coming out of War Games, and he says that he's got a deep sense of gratitude towards his team, and he names every single person on his team. He references Randy, and he says that Randy Orton has been a massive mentor to me, and he is a dear friend, and we have plenty of memories together, and it made it that much more special that he was participating with Randy in his dad's creation of the War Games match. He looked a little bit emotional talking about that, and he says there's some other stories coming in, and there's a return of CM Punk that we all want to talk about, and nobody knew that he was coming back and nobody knows where he's going to go, so he's very interested to see where that happens. And he welcomed CM Punk back to Monday Night Raw, and he said, the news right here, and this is the destination for me to make this news. And he makes a very bold announcement. He says, obviously if Adam Pearce is okay with this, I want to declare myself as the first person for the Royal Rumble. And I was kind of taken back. I was like, oh, are you sure you want to do that, considering we're like a month and a half out? But I mean, if Cody wants to go ahead and finish the story, if that's his motive to wanting to declare himself as the #1 person within this match, seeing as nobody else has been entered in it yet, I think that's totally a great way to make sure that people know that he is wanting to finish the story. Then out of nowhere, we see Shinsuke Nakamura appear on the Titantron, and he asks Cody to set him free. So it kind of made me feel like all those messages that we've been receiving from Shinsuke Nakamura in the last couple of weeks have almost led to Cody Rhodes. And he says that, I've been waiting for a long time. You need to set me free. You need to set me free. And then the room goes dark and it, comes back to light. And we see Shinsuke Nakamura behind Cody Rhodes. Cody turns around and ends up getting hit in the face with some red mist. So obviously, Cody Rhodes is now Shinsuke Nakamura's next target. I have a feeling, and I could be wrong with my theory here, but I feel as though This match is going to take Cody Rhodes out of the Royal Rumble, so he will not be considered a participant or a winner. He may have a singles match at the Royal Rumble with Shinsuke Nakamura, but I feel as though if Cody Rhodes wants to punch his ticket to WrestleMania, he's going to need to win the Elimination Chamber, as that is your second chance to go ahead and take a title opportunity at WrestleMania. I feel as though that's a really cool way they could do it. Give Shinsuke Nakamura a really good rub against Cody Rhodes. It'd be a great match, and I feel as though they will be able to tell a really good story. After this, we had a match between Ivar and Bronson Reed. Now, this came about by a couple of weeks ago from that Intercontinental Championship Contenders opportunity, where they both very much were upset by each other's actions within that match. So straight away from the very beginning, they are both trying to shoulder tackle each other, but they are too strong and they can't beat each other down. Then we see Ivar hitting a really nice sit-down bomb onto Bronson Reed. This is followed up by Bronson hitting a really nice suplex, and Ivar follows this up with a really nice spinning kick and a crossbody. We then go to the commercial break, and after the commercial break, Bronson Reed is in control of the match. He gets a really nice super kick and then a Samoan drop followed by a senton. Ivar goes ahead and slams Bronson Reed and does a doomsault, but then nobody's home. Valhalla tries to distract the ref, but then the ref ends up ejecting her, so she ends up having to leave. Bronson Reed then takes Ivar outside of the ring and hits a really nice Death Valley driver into the timekeeper's area. The ref at this stage is actually at the 8 count, and they both don't continue the match because they're both not in the ring within the 10 count. So technically nobody won, but the match very much continued. We saw a moment where Ivar jumped off the top of a tech case outside. They ended up brawling outside into the crowd as well too. A lot of security is trying to get involved, but both Ivar and Bronson Reed end up being able to attack the security. So I believe there was a moment where Bronson Reed actually picked up one of the security guards and quite literally threw him into Ivar. I don't know what's going on here. I feel as though this is very much a filler feud for both of them, but I feel as though this could be really interesting to see where we go from here. I feel as though there may be a few more stipulation matches coming in, considering how intense this has gotten so far, but I'm very interested to see where we go from here. After this, we then see Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler talking backstage about her match against Rhea Ripley at Survivor Series War Games, and how Zoe was so incredibly close to beating Rhea and she was just a little bit disheartened that she didn't get there. See Nia Jax come in and essentially blow the party and just start talking about how the women's division is now on notice, and it should have been her in that match at Survivor Series because then you would be calling her the new Women's World Champion. We see Zoe get a little bit upset by this and decide to set up a one-on-one match against Nia Jax later on in the evening. That backstage segment was followed up by a video recap of CM Punk's fantastic return at Survivor Series. I'm saying fantastic because I still cannot believe what I saw. I witnessed it with my own eyes and I literally could not believe it. I love the way that WWE did this because it was talking about all the different news outlets that were talking about his return, you know, the BBC, ESPN, all of these different things, but we actually saw them put a compilation of a bunch of different online clips from different streamers. We saw the likes of Conman, we saw Mr. Tesh, we saw Santi, our OG King Santi, the Lord and Savior of WrestleTalk. We saw Wheezy in there, we saw Mini Portable, we saw a whole bunch of different people's reactions, and it was so incredibly cool. But it's also a little bit scary to know that WWE knows that us WrestleTalkers exist, and so I'm a little bit scared. I was almost hoping that my clip wasn't included because I was like, oh gosh, imagine if that was included. WrestleTalk was included too, which I love WrestleTalk. They are a fantastic news outlet for anything wrestling related, so I just feel like it added a real relatable element because a lot of us people do reactions and stuff and we obviously never get these moments, but it was so incredibly cool to see that. I loved seeing it. I absolutely marked out when I saw Wheezy and Sandy. I was like, oh my god, I know them. Then we end up seeing this really funny segment where the Judgment Day are returning back to their clubhouse after finding JD McDonough. Obviously he was in medical, to then see R-Truth lying on their leather couch with some really nice jelly rolls. They're like little bread things. I'm not too sure. I don't live in America, so I unfortunately don't know. But just like they came in and R-Truth had like the icing sugar all over the couch and everything was sticky and they were all complaining, and you know R-Truth was like, oh god guys, it's so nice to see you, like how was your War Games match, like can I still be a participant in your team? And Damien was like, well no, because the War Games match was 48 hours ago and we lost. And then they all started just like getting really upset about the couch was completely tarnished from R-Truth being there and eating food, and it was just a really funny segment. I feel as though me justifying it and me answering it's not really going to do it justice. But then it followed up by saying, well, JD McDonough went ahead and said that he is going to take care of R-Truth, so could we potentially see them have a match next week? I feel as though that would be really cool to see. Then we had the match between Nia Jax and Zoe Stark. Now, straight away from the very beginning, Nia is overpowering Zoe and ends up hitting Zoe with a really nice powerbomb. Zoe ends up climbing off the top ropes and just throwing herself at Nia, who was outside of the ring. Then we hit the commercial break. After the break, Nia's in control of the match. She tries to hoist Zoe and then ends up slinging Zoe into the turnbuckle. We then see Zoe counter this with a really nice super kick, and then Nia ends up running into the ring post. We end up seeing Zoe hit a really nice corkscrew senton, and then Nia sets up her finisher, but Zoe ends up kicking Nia, and then we see Nia hit a Samoan drop and then a senton and then into her annihilator finish. So Nia Jax came away with the win. I was a little bit disappointed it wasn't going to Zoe Stark, but I completely think it was a good match, and I feel as though Zoe is going to get her moment when that time comes. I saw an Intercontinental Championship title video recap from Survivor Series. This was then followed by seeing Ludwig and Giovanni arguing backstage over their loss for the contenders match for the tag team titles. Gunther comes in and says that you need to sort out that DIY problem. And then we see The Miz come in, and The Miz basically just chopped off the whole thing by saying that he knows that he can beat Gunther again. And Gunther goes ahead and says that The Miz is no threat. I feel as though we're going to see this feud happen again a little bit further down the line. Whether or not The Miz ends up dethroning Gunther is not my decision, but I wouldn't mind it happening. After this, Seth Rollins made his way out to the ring and welcomed everybody to Monday Night Raw. Unfortunately, the segment did start getting overpowered by CM Punk chants from the very beginning, which Seth Rollins basically responded to the crowd and said, like, is that all you've got? Go ahead and let it all out, I don't care, just get the chants out while you can. And he said he does not want to give one more ounce of energy to that hypocrite and that he doesn't matter. And the only thing that really matters is that he has had the World Heavyweight Championship title for 6 months, and he has built it into the most important title within the entire wrestling industry. On by saying that he's not feeling too good, but he does have that itch coming back to be a fighting champion again. He said he met in Adam Pearce's office, and then we are rudely interrupted by Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre comes out and says it's been a very crazy 48 hours and a lot of things have changed. He offers to shake Seth Rollins' hand and congratulate him on the War Games match win, which that happened. And he goes in and says, well, it seems as though that Judgment Day had a plan, and they promised me Jey Uso in the War Games match. But the plan is that they lost, and said that he needs to go away and refocus and think about what is most important to him, and he points to the World Heavyweight Championship and says that that is the most important thing he needs to focus on right now. Drew McIntyre says to Seth Rollins, what did you say to me before and after our match when it came to if I was to win or lose the championship? And Seth Rollins follows on by saying that, in this situation, these things happen and you don't have anybody to blame but yourself. Drew McIntyre responds with saying, you are 100% right about that, and I have nobody left to blame, and I felt sympathy for you when we were in that match, but now I'm coming for that World Heavyweight Championship title and I want my rematch. Seth Rollins says, Drew, I have always really appreciated and respected your honesty. You do deserve a rematch, but there are a few more people that are actually waiting in line that deserve that match opportunity, the title opportunity, a little bit more at the moment. And he said, that's exactly why I was in Adam Pearce's office, was to set up a match for next week so I could defend my title. Drew McIntyre asks, well, do you mind if I ask who your contender, who your opponent is going to be within that match? And you could see Seth's face, and he goes ahead and says, Jey Uso. And you can just kind of see a switch just go off in Drew McIntyre's mind. He's not happy. He stares at Seth Rollins for quite a bit of time and then ends up headbutting him, which we actually see Drew McIntyre open himself up in the head. And then he ends up buckle bombing Seth, and he's just asking, he's screaming, is this personal? Is this why you wanted to do this, because you wanted to get me going? But then we see Jey Uso come out to make the save. Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre brawl with each other, but then we end up seeing Seth Rollins assists Jey Uso in taking down Drew McIntyre. He leaves the ring. Jey Uso sees the title on the ground, picks it up, stares at it, and then hands it back to Rollins. So there's a wee moment that we can see he's actually interested in that title. I'm excited. This match has been confirmed for next week. I feel as though it's going to be a great match. After this, we see Drew McIntyre walking backstage and he runs into Sami Zayn, and Drew McIntyre is just in a terrible mood. Sami goes ahead and says, you know, why are you acting like this? Why are you being like this? You know, at the end of the day, you are not the only one who had your dreams crushed and you faced disappointment in front of everybody. We all feel the same way. I feel the same way as you. We've all had moments where we're being like upset and frustrated about what's happening, and he said that you're better than what you're acting, and he's basically telling Drew McIntyre not to be a spoilt brat. And I was like, you go, Sami, you tell him. After this, we had the women's tag team match between Tegan Nox and Natalya taking on Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. If I am being perfectly honest, I had no interest in this match. I feel as though that tag team contenders match they had last week, the opportunity for the tag titles could have gone to a more interesting, more established, more long-term team. And when I say long-term, I mean a team that's been together for a longer period of time and actually is a legitimate tag team. I don't care about Tegan Nox and Natalya's sudden joining of friendship, because guess what? The crowd didn't care. The crowd didn't care about Natalya. The crowd doesn't care about Tegan Nox, no matter how much you try and push her down our throats. And I'm not trying to be mean by saying that, but they just don't care. Anyway, I'm going to get into this match before I start arguing with myself about if I want to say more, because I'm just going to say the crowd didn't care about Tegan Nox and Natalya, and I'm a bit over it. I'm a bit over them being constantly shoved down my throat when I know fully well there are better tag teams in the women's division that are not getting the showcase and not getting the time and appreciation that they deserve, i.e. Candice and Indy, i.e. Katana and Kaden, i.e. Maxine and Ivy. I have more interest in them than I do Tegan Nox and Natalya. And I'm not trying to rip on them as people. I'm just saying the dynamic of always trying to put a young rookie and a veteran with each other to make them a team just does not work for me. Anyway, Chelsea and Piper looked great in this match. I was trying to find a way to transition into that, but that was actually one of my first notes. They looked great. Not only their ring gear looked fantastic, but they worked really well as a team. So straight away from the very beginning, Piper goes shoulder first into the ring post, which then Natty ends up hitting a really nice crossbody. And then we hit the commercial break. After the commercial break, Chelsea and Piper are actually in control, and we see a really nice sit-out powerbomb from Natalya onto Chelsea. Then we see Tegan Nox get tagged in, and she's coming in super strong. Tegan Nox comes in really strong, and we see a couple of really quick pin attempts, which obviously are unsuccessful. We see Chelsea hit a really nice crossbody, and then she ends up getting caught, and then Tegan and Natalya both suplex her into the barricade. Piper hits a really nice cannonball, following this by a running crossbody to come away with the win. So the tag champs are still winners. I don't understand the point of this, but anyway. As I say, I'm going to stop arguing with myself about these things, because it's just like stupidly frustrating. Anyway, there is then a moment where we see Randy Orton strapping up his arms backstage and his wrists. We see Jey Uso come in, and he thanks Randy for being so nice to him within the match. Obviously, they have a deep history with each other, so he was saying thank you for, you know, not doing anything to me in the way that everyone was expecting. And he said that he was sorry with how things went down in the past. Obviously, the bloodline, Jey Uso was a part of it when Randy Orton last wrestled, and then when he got taken out, so he feels a little bit responsible for it. And he says, Cody's given me a second chance, so I just want to let you know that I am not with the bloodline anymore. I'm on my own. Randy responds by saying, you know, let's let bygones be bygones. And he said he's still going to go after the bloodline, but as long as you are not with them anymore, we are good. And then they both yeet. They both say yeet. It was a bit weird hearing Randy say yeet, but I guess we'll get used to it. After this, Jackie Redmond catches up with Becky Lynch backstage and asks how she's doing after the match at Survivor Series War Games. Becky responds by saying that she is looking and feeling like she went to war and that she made amends over the weekend, and there is a very thin line between love and hate, but there are more important fights on the horizon, and there is one that is more pressing than others. I believe she's talking about Rhea Ripley. Can we start to see them plant those seeds for WrestleMania, please? Because I want that match with my whole entire heart. I need it. I love Becky Lynch. She's been one of my favourites of all time. She literally is my favourite of all time. Why am I getting emotional talking about her? It's wild. And then Rhea Ripley is slowly becoming one of my favourites. She's been up there for quite some time, but the work that she's doing now is really impressing me, and I'm just completely obsessed with everything Mami. Then we go to the main event, which technically it's not the main event, but it's the main event of the show. It is the match between Randy Orton and Dominic Mysterio. I really enjoyed this match. I feel as though this was a really great match for Randy Orton, considering it was his first singles match back on the main roster. He is straight away going in after Dominic Mysterio. I literally wrote down, it looks like he hasn't skipped a day. He's just back in control of everything, looking really strong, looking really healthy. So I'm really happy that he's there. He hits a really nice back body drop onto Dominic Mysterio. Then we hit the commercial break. After the commercial break, Randy Orton is actually still in control. For this, we see Dominic Mysterio hit Randy in the back and then throw him into the ring steps. Randy hits a really nasty clothesline and power slam combo. This is then followed by obviously the DDT that he does, and he coils himself up like he's ready to strike for that RKO. But then we end up seeing JD McDonough pull Dominic Mysterio outside of the ring. And we see a moment where they walk more towards the commentator's table, and Jelly Roll, who from earlier in the evening, is sitting ringside, and he ends up not only shoving JD McDonough but shoving Dominic Mysterio. Then we see Randy Orton throwing Dominic Mysterio into that table twice, so that's the commentary table. Then we see Randy ending up DDTing JD McDonough. Dominic Mysterio hits a 619, which is then followed by a frog splash that was, no one was home for it. We end up following this with an RKO from Randy Orton. He comes away with the win, which was really exciting. I'm really happy he won his first match back. I feel as though it was very much a foregone conclusion, but nonetheless, I am excited. So the reason I was quite hesitant towards saying that that was the main event was because it wasn't the main event. All throughout the night, they were talking about CM Punk's return, and he'll be addressing his return with a live mic, which obviously, if you know, you know. They were just referencing it all night on commentary and in video recap form. So CM Punk's promo actually main evented the show. So we got to see a look outside CM Punk's locker room, and then we had a commercial break, came back from the commercial break, and CM Punk makes his way out to the ring. The crowd are not as hyped as they were in Chicago. Obviously, CM Punk is from Chicago, so it makes sense for them to be very excited for his return in Chicago. Nonetheless, he got a really good response. And he makes his way out to the ring, grabs a microphone, and says that it looks like hell has frozen over because he's here. He's standing in a WWE ring with a microphone, and he then says that he's been feeling a little bit more like himself lately, and especially after Survivor Series, he's been feeling a lot more like himself. And, he's got some things he wants to say. He's got 2 words he wants to say, but he's really scared of how they'll come across, and, they sound really corny and cringe and really cheesy. But he says those 2 words are that I'm home. And he follows on by saying he's really feeling like his old self again, and that he feels as though he belongs, and he knows that he's been gone for 10 years, and the crowd the entire time never forgot him. They never forgot who CM Punk was. Said within those 10 years, it was so incredibly powerful, the fact that the crowd never forgot who he was, and that they continued to chant his name, and that the voiceless found their voice, and that he loves everybody, he loves the fans, and that he really misses everybody, and he missed them while he was gone. And he said he's back for you guys. And there's a moment that literally, I almost felt like I was going to cry. There's a moment where people I believe they start chanting AJ, and he says, for those who are asking, AJ is doing well and she sends her regards. And I was like, no, please. I'm getting upset talking about it now because we haven't heard anybody reference AJ Lee on WWE TV for a long time. So I feel as though that could be something in the future I'd be really excited to see, but I was really excited. So he then follows on by saying that a lot of people were really happy backstage for his return, but there were some people that weren't super happy. He doesn't name names, he just makes a blanket statement. He says that they might be afraid that, somebody who is considered the most dangerous, most feared man just walked straight through that front door and came back. He says, the best in the world is back, and that he is going to compete to be the best in the world. And, he's saying that a lot of these people are really concerned that he's going to set the bar super high and be able to put it at an unattainable level. But he said he's here, he's excited to be back, and as the camera stops rolling, I heard him say that he is not here to make friends, he is here to make money, and I feel as though that is probably the best way that CM Punk could have finished saying what he said. There's a moment as well too when he was walking into the ring that there was a poster that somebody made that WWE caught on camera that quite literally said "Cry Me a River." And it's like, if you know, you know. You know the jokes, you know all that inside humour, Tony Khan fearing for his life. I've taken a couple of days to think about the entire return of CM Punk. And as I said earlier in the video, my brain still hasn't really processed it. It's one of those things where it's like I never thought I would see the day that not only I saw his entire career within WWE, but then him leave and him join AEW and then him leave AEW and all that stuff that went on. I never imagined in my wildest dreams that he would return. It feels very surreal. It's very much like a pinch me moment. I am willing to not focus so much on what has happened in the past. I'm somebody who likes to let bygones be bygones, and I like to focus on, okay, that's happened in the past, that is totally fine, but how about we focus on the here and now and what is going to happen in the future, and I can make judgment based on that. I'd rather have a clean slate and kind of just focus on what's going to happen from here on out. I'm also somebody who very much can separate the person from the character we see on screen, and I know a lot of people find it really tricky to do that, but I just feel as though for my mental state that's the best way to do things. So all in all, I'm very excited for the return of CM Punk. I feel as though it's going to do massive business for the WWE, and I feel as though it's a really good decision. There are so many good feuds that he can have. I mean, the landscape of the entirety of WWE has changed within the last 10 years. There are so many fresh matchups he can have, so many fresh feuds he can have, so many rich and deep history and like historical storylines he can have with a lot of people that are on the roster. I mean, Cody Rhodes being one of them, Seth Rollins being one of them, Randy Orton being one of them. There are so many different ways that they could go about this. I'm excited. I feel as though him coming back to WWE, whether or not it's on Raw or SmackDown or I don't know, I'm just excited to see where we go from here. With that, that's the end of the recap for Monday Night Raw this week. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you go ahead and leave a like on it and comment something that you enjoyed about Monday Night Raw this week. If you haven't done so already, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We would love to have you a part of our community here. If you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and check out the description down below. We've got all of our personal socials as well as the Outcasted TikTok, Twitter, which we now call X. I don't call it that. I'm going to continue to call it Twitter. So the TikTok, Twitter and Instagram, we post a lot more content on there and updates for when videos are coming out and when podcasts are dropping. So make sure you go ahead and follow those so you don't miss an upload or a podcast. We'll be having the NXT review coming in from Reese this week as well as a podcast on Thursday. The regular SmackDown review coming in later on this week as well as a full week in review of AEW. So if you don't want to miss any of that, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Put on a bell notification so you don't miss the notification for when we post, and I'll see you guys in the podcast. Bye guys.